Sex and creativity, two completely different things, yet they are so deeply connected to one another. And a lot of the time, we don't realize that when we're struggling with creative expression, underneath all those blocks is where sexual repression exists. And for many of us, it's not even something that we realize we're going through because it dates way back into our childhood and we stuffed it so deep down because it makes us uncomfortable to look at. We may have grown up in a really rigid, conservative environment where we were taught to feel ashamed of our natural human bodies or our natural human desires, or maybe we were even punished for questioning it. I grew up in an environment where we couldn't even utter the word sex. I was taught that because I was a woman, I was responsible for making other men feel uncomfortable if I wasn't wearing something baggy, or if my arms and my shoulders were exposed, or that I was way too provocative if my knees were showing or my dress wasn't all the way down to my ankles. And because of this, I developed deep internal shame, and I still struggle to feel safe within my body to this day. It wasn't until my early 20s where I was forced to face all of it. All my shame and repression came full force, and I was forced to confront it even if it made me deeply uncomfortable. But one really important thing that I learned is that sexual repression doesn't just affect our relationship with our bodies and our intimate life. It affects so many different areas of our life. Sexual repression chips away at your authenticity, your ability to be vulnerable with yourself, and it creates a mind-body split. We struggle to really connect with our bodies, and these are all the things we need in order to creatively thrive. We need to be authentic, we need to be vulnerable, and be connected to our physical bodies. True creative expression does not come from the surface. It comes from the most deepest, vulnerable parts of ourselves. When we are writing something raw, putting ourselves out there, saying or dancing, and doing that with full emotion. In order to really be able to do that, we have to be vulnerable with ourselves and we have to be authentic. But when you've been taught that your natural human body parts and your very natural built-in human desires are something that you should be ashamed of, you genuinely start to believe that there's something fundamentally wrong with who you are and that you're undeserving of love and acceptance and that you must be sinful, bad, dirty. So now because of all this, you feel safer repressing who you are. You're carrying all this shame, and as a result, you shut yourself down and hide yourself from the world. And this internalized shame is creating a barrier between you and your authenticity. Without authenticity, creative expression becomes flat. You might still create, but it feels like there's this big piece of the puzzle that's missing. Like there's this disconnect and block that doesn't really allow you to connect with the deepest parts of yourself. And a big piece of that is because of the judgment that's associated with the shame. When we believe that there is something wrong with who we are, we develop this inner critic that constantly polices us. And this voice does not just show up during intimate moments or when we're looking at our bodies. It shows up in all different areas of our life. It ends up becoming the voice that tells us not to put our poem out there because it's too cringe, to hold back on dancing like that because it might make others uncomfortable, or not to share that painting because it's not good enough. And now we're afraid to put ourselves out there. We dilute ourselves in our creative work because we want to be accepted, and that's because we've been taught to completely reject ourselves. True creative expression requires freedom from judgment and self-acceptance. When we're constantly dimming who we are, the parts of ourselves that have the ability to create the most powerful, original work never even get to see the light of day. And going back to how sexual repression creates a disconnect with our physical bodies, a lot of the time we think that creativity is just a mental thing, but it's very much connected to our physical bodies as well, because some of our most powerful work comes from the ability to be present within our bodies through movement, through touch, sound, taste, that sensory exploration. But repression is now teaching you to disconnect from your body, which ends up blocking so much of that creative flow. The truth is, a lot of us grew up in conservative homes where purity culture was heavily pushed on us, and it was extreme. And it's going to be a long journey to really overcome that and heal from it. It's not going to be overnight, but being aware is the first step to change. Reclaiming your sexual energy is a very personal journey, and you're going to unlock parts of yourself that you have stuffed away for so long. And right now you might be feeling a little stuck, but that's just right before the climax.